Apple announced their Creator Studio Suite earlier this month. It's an interesting collection of apps that come in at a $12.99 monthly subscription price. I've been test driving the Apple Creator Studio for the last week or so, and it's an interesting experience because I already own most of these apps, at least the ones I use on a regular basis. Hello, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals. And all of these apps exist already. Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, Pages, Numbers, Keynote, Pixelmator Pro, a handful of others. You, if you're a regular Mac user, probably already own one or some of these apps if you use them on a regular basis. And if you do own them, they aren't going away. They aren't being locked behind a paywall, so don't panic. You can keep using what you paid for. You will still get updates. And if you want to own them and you don't have them yet, you can even still buy them outright with a one-time purchase like you always have. The subscription price gives you access to all of the apps, not just the ones on the Mac, but also their iPad counterparts. And to sweeten the deal, they're also adding things like design templates to some of the apps and the ability to generate AI images and audio. More on that towards the end of the video. Think of this as like some of the premium features that we see Canva and Adobe selling in their Pro accounts. But when you think of Canva, it's really geared more towards marketers. Adobe is geared towards creative pros who are super specialized in one area. Maybe you're a video editor, maybe you're a concept artist or a logo designer. Adobe's apps are power tools. These apps are more geared towards, well, me. Specifically, someone who does a lot of little things. I can write scripts in Pages, I can edit my final video in Final Cut, I can do some motion graphics in Motion and make thumbnails and social media graphics in Pixelmator. These are pro tools, but most aren't as deep as Adobe's, with the exception of maybe like Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro. So when you take the like 1,000 foot view, this makes a ton of sense. Adobe is like crazy expensive. I think it's $70 a month now for their pro accounts before taxes. And it makes sense for me, someone who spends their entire life with an Adobe app open on their desktop. My entire career is built on this thing. I can justify that price. For so many people who are just getting into content creation or it's a side gig, those kind of prices, monthly prices, are insane. Not to mention the fact that you have to sign up for an entire year of Adobe, and if you cancel before that year is up, they slam you with a penalty fee. So it's way more than $70 a month. Now, a lot of the apps in this suite, I'm just not that familiar with, and learning the workflow of 9 separate apps over the course of the week is kind of crazy. I can't do that for one video, so I decided to just sink more time into a handful of these apps, the kind of apps that I would actually use on a day-to-day basis. So opening up Pages, for example, to write a script, I was greeted by a choose your own template adventure screen. The old Pages did this too. You can find to launch a blank document or grab a report or a template or a book or a flyer template. All of that is still there, but now they have a premium section as well where you can find like more designed templates for a lot of these different categories. And this starts to remind me a lot of what Canva is doing. Maybe a little bit more limited in terms of like the amount of things that you can grab and use as a template. I'm not super familiar with Canva because I haven't used it a lot, but I'm assuming it's way more built out in terms of the quantity of things there. But also this is Apple's first iteration. This is brand new. And so I'm assuming that this visual library is going to kind of grow, build out over time, and that's part of what the subscription fee is for. Now, I spent the majority of my time playing with Pixelmator. It's an image and photo editing app. Think Photoshop, but a little bit more scaled down. It's pretty cool. I've made videos on it before. And the new interface and the fact that it's so similar between the desktop version and the iPad version is a big improvement. I ended up using this a lot for YouTube thumbnails. So I was snapping a photo on my phone, pulling it over, cleaning up any dust and scratches on the background of the photo, and then making a mask so I can swap out the blue background for whatever color background that I want to use while still maintaining the drop shadow on the product. It's something that I'm totally used to doing in Photoshop. I do it all the time. And so pulling that workflow over here worked really well. Like Pages, there are a bunch of new starter templates here. Social media graphics, like posters, app mockups, like logos. You get the idea. Personally, I'm coming from the background of a graphic designer, so I like to start with a blank canvas. I think best with a big white canvas in front of me or a big photo to work from, and I don't want to be kind of restricted by a canvas. But if you're not and you're just trying to make like some quick graphics for social media and that sort of thing, I can see where this would be super useful. I think the big question a lot of people here are going to ask is, can you paint in Pixelmator? And the answer is yes. Should you paint in Pixelmator? I don't know if that's its strength. I really feel like this is leaning more into the graphic design side of things that you see in Photoshop or the photo editing parts of Photoshop. For example, if I place a photo here, it's super easy to like right click on it and replace it with another photo from my library. I loved that. There are a bunch of brushes here too. There's an eraser tool, there's layers, there's selection tools, there's move tools. But when we think about this in the context of sketching, drawing, illustrating, some of these things like the brush tool and the color palette, those things, they're tucked away a little bit. If you look at a painting app like Procreate or some of the other apps that are available on the iPad, that is for drawing. And so those tools are front and center. Whereas here, they're totally there. You can totally change your brush. You can totally play around with those things, but they're just not as centrally located. It's not the focus. Quick shout out, I've got 2 courses, Learn to Draw in 60 Days and Intro to Digital Art over at bradsartschool.com. Check those out if you're just jumping into digital art or wanting to learn more about drawing. Back to the video. Now, if the only thing you're interested in here in this entire package is Pixelmator, you can pick that up for $50 on the Mac or on the iPad. But if you buy it on one, if you buy it for the Mac, you can't use it on the iPad. If you buy it for the iPad, you can't use it on the Mac. You have to go back and buy it again for that second platform. That part is a little bit of a bummer. I understand why they're doing it, because when I was using this, it seamlessly carried over my designs via iCloud. It just automatically did that. So when I started working on an image over here on my desktop, I could just go to my iPad and boom, it's right there. I could open it up. I loved that. That seamlessness of how these things work together was really nice. Now the iPad and the Mac app are included in the umbrella of the subscription here. Same with Final Cut. That costs $300. It's a one-time purchase for the Mac. It's been a subscription for the iPad for a while. It still is. If you want Final Cut Pro on the iPad, it's still $5 a month. That hasn't changed. But of course, if you're paying the $12.99 monthly or the $130 a year, you don't have to pay the $5. It's just included. So it's really up to you whether you're going to use the extra features they're adding as a service, or if you're just better off paying for the iPad version of Pixelmator and the Mac version of Pixelmator once for $100 to get both of those and then not pay the subscription ever. And I think Apple is really relying on those extra bonus things that they're adding in here to kind of keep people glued into the subscription model and not do those individual purchases. And that's where we need to talk a little bit about AI, because the AI features are one of those key benefits of that subscription service. And like Adobe and Canva, my assumption is that these AI features are going to get more robust over time to justify this subscription price. Cards on the table. I'm a hardcore AI skeptic. I am not a fan of generative AI, at all. And when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, here we go. Big tech is at it again. But using the apps, I was surprised at how low key the AI features are, at least in most of the apps. It changes from which program you're using. So the kind of things that Apple is doing here is in Pixelmator, you can use AI to up-res a photo that you already placed into your design. So your photo ends up just looking a little bit better. It doesn't turn it into slop. Now, if you want to do that, if you want to generate an image from nothing, you could totally do that. There's a feature called Image Playground in Pixelmator, but it's really tucked away in a menu, and it took me a while to find it. Apps like Keynote are a lot more front and center with their AI use. There's a generate image bar right there on the sidebar, really primary location. And features like being able to take your notes and have Keynote just generate an entire slideshow for you based on those. In Final Cut, they're using AI to analyze your footage, figure out what you actually filmed, and then you can go to the search bar, type in what you're looking for, I could type in Apple Pencil, and it's going to find clips within my larger video files where that B-roll of my Apple Pencil is. And as someone who doesn't like AI in general, I have to admit that kind of sounds like a useful feature, and it's not harming my creative work in any way. Final Cut can also use AI to analyze the beat of background music that you've added to your video, and then it makes a little grid right there in the background, and you can use that grid to align it and make cuts to your footage so that it syncs up with the beat. Right now, it seems like Apple is trying to find ways to use AI to speed up or improve existing workflows instead of just outright replacing the creative process entirely. And if I'm being honest, I'm still chewing on how I feel about that. I'm really interested to see how Creator Studio evolves over the next few years. Are these features subtle because Apple doesn't have these features ready yet? Apple Intelligence just can't do it well? Will they be brute forcing this stuff into the future the way Canva and Adobe and every other big tech company is doing it? Or are these features subtle because these apps, or some of them, are aimed at creators and they know how much creators really prefer to create? Now, if you make any kind of content online, whether, video, illustration, that sort of thing, you know that there's been a massive AI backlash brewing it's really built up over the last few months, and it's only getting stronger. For example, a year or two ago, I was seeing more and more people experiment with using AI to make their YouTube thumbnails. And over the last few months, AI for YouTube thumbnails, at least in the videos that I'm given, have completely gone away. And that's because the audience associates that AI look and imagery with slop. So even if the video itself was handcrafted, it's really good, the thumbnails kind of left a stink on the content, and the audience just were not clicking on those videos as much. So I think if Apple's long-term goal is to use AI in more subtle ways that actually helps creators instead of replacing the creative process for creators, these kind of tools make sense. But what do you think? Do you think there is a use for AI in creative work at all? Should we just not use it for anything? Where's the line? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.